This is the website you're going to learn how to build by the end of this video. So here we have this main landing page. It has a beautiful image here. I show you step by step how to create all this. And then down here we have our services. And then further down here we also have a bit of content about our website. We also have an email opt-in here as well. Finally, we have this footer. Now this footer is responsive. I also show you how to create this using the latest Divi features. Okay, so let's go to the about page. So over here, we have our page titles. Now, our page titles are going to be unique across the whole website. So again, you see, if you come over here to services, you're going to have the same unique structure, which makes our website look professional. So the about page here has our theme. I also show you how to recreate this from scratch. So further down here, you can see we have a bit of information, and of course we have our footer that's the same across the whole website. And again, we have a list of all our services. This is our service 1, and you can also have an option here to have a button that goes to the inquiry page. So you have our services 2 here and services 3. So here we have our contact form and also information on how people can get in touch with us. Now, Divi has a lot of features. For example, if you come over here, you'll notice that we have the variable manager here. Throughout this tutorial, I'll show you how to add all your variables and how to apply them in your design workflow. We also have grid and flexbox, and I show you exactly how to use all these throughout this tutorial. So by the end of this video, you're going to know how to use Divi effectively. Let's dive in. Before we get started, we need very good hosting, and highly recommend Hostinger. And if you purchase this using my affiliate link, you're also going to get access to my own bonuses. I have a Divi 5 design system, which makes the designing of websites very, very easy. It also comes with the Divi 5 mastery course. So as soon as you purchase this, let me know and I'll give you those bonuses. All right, so what you need to do here is to claim the deal. So far, it's $195 per month and 2 months free. So I'm going to go in. And you can see here we have these 3 prices. The one that I highly recommend is the one in the middle here, which is $275 per month, and it gives you 50 websites. Now, the good thing about this as well is you also get a free domain name. You don't have to pay for your domain. So what you want to do, depending on what you choose, you just have to click here on choose plan. So this now takes you to the page where you need to choose how many months you need to sign up for. And we have several options here. We have 1 month, 12 months, 24 months. Now, since it's hosting and it's a very, very good platform, I'll just go with 48 months just to, make things easier. Now, what's even more amazing is they even have an extra 10% Black Friday. Of course, if you purchase this as soon as possible, or as soon as you watch this video and the offer is still available, I'm going to say apply now. And we can see here that we have a total of 132. Okay, so I don't need to apply the coupon code here. I'm going to say continue. Okay, so here we go. This is where you need to enter all your information. So in my case here, it's my first name, last name, all that good stuff. If you have any details for your company here, you can go in and add your company name and the VAT number. So this is also going to depend where you are in the world. All right, so now that I have this, the next step now is to click on continue. Okay, so we're almost done. And you can see the process here is very, very, very easy. There's so many payment options here. We have PayPal, Google Pay, Apple Pay. They even have Alipay, China, and so on. Or you can enter your card details manually. Okay, so in my case, I would probably go with Apple Pay or even PayPal. So you just click on that, and now you can go to your PayPal checkout. Now, once you purchase this, you're going to get an email. And in that email, you're going to get all your login details. In my case, I have my login details, and you can see here, everything is based on Hostinger. So what I need to do next now is to create my brand new website. And it's very, very easy to create my website. So this is my dashboard right here. If you need to create your website, you'd come over here to websites. And by the way, the step-by-step process of setting everything up, the setup wizard, also goes through how to set up a website, and this is where you're going to end up. If you have any issues or any problems, or you lose yourself in the whole process, just drop me an email and I'll be able to help you out. All right, so let's create our brand new website by clicking here on add website. So we want a basic WordPress website. So I'm going to come over here. Okay, so now I'm going to choose my login details for my WordPress website. So all I need here is to enter my password. Okay, so that's my password and that's my email address. I'm going to say next. So now it's asking me create with AI or pre-built. So because we're using Divi, we don't need to set to choose any of these two. So I'm going to go ahead and say blank website. So here it's asking me for a domain, but I need to use a temporary domain. I don't have to create a new domain. Now, the really cool thing about this temporary domain is you can actually set up a client's website using this option. And once the website is complete, you can hand it over when they can also change their details and so on, which is fantastic. So I really like using temporary domains all the time. Okay, so my website has been designed and it's complete. And you can see here, I'm automatically logged into my WordPress website. And here we have Hostinger, and these are the onboarding tools. We also have tools here. We have email marketing, AI content creator. Okay, so since we have everything all set up here, I am now going to go to my WordPress dashboard. So this is what we're usually familiar with. I'm just going to clean things up a little bit here, and I'm going to dismiss this. And then over here on the screen options, what I normally do when I get started is to just go in and remove all these panels here just to keep everything all clean. Okay, so now that we have this, pretty much we are good to go. So the next step now is to download Divi, because this is going to be our page builder. Very, very easy to use. And again, if you purchase this using my affiliate link, I'll also give you access to my Divi 5 mastery course. All right, so I already have an account. So I'm going to go in, click on login. So here I am in my admin area of my Elegant Themes account, and you can see here we have Divi 5 beta, and I highly recommend we use Divi 5 because this is where we are headed, and Divi 4 now is pretty much the past. So I'm going to go ahead and click on download Divi 5, and you can see here it has downloaded. So that's all I need to do right now. Next, I'm going to go back to my website, and let me go ahead now and install the theme. So I'm going to come over here to appearance and then click on themes. Next, you want to click on add theme and then upload, because remember we just downloaded it. So we're going to come over here now to choose file, and then we sort of double click on this one because this is the one we just downloaded, and I'm going to say install. Next, I'm going to say activate, so activate my theme, and now I need to add my license. Okay, so my key is activated and I'm pretty much ready to get started. So the next thing we're going to do is to create our pages first. So I'm going to come over here to pages, all pages. So far you see we have the privacy policy. So we need to add more pages. So I'm going to come over here, and the first page I need to create is the home page. So I'm just going to say home, use Divi Builder. And then over here to the top, I'm going to say publish. So we can just publish this page. And then I am going to exit. The next page I'm going to create is the contact page. So I'm going to go back, click on this plus button here, click on page. This one here is going to be contact. Now it doesn't matter what order you create these pages. I'm going to say use Divi Builder, publish. So I'm going to continue doing this until I add the services and also the about page. All right, so I've created all my pages now. I have the home, the about, contact, and services. The next step now is to have a quick look at our website. So I'm going to come over here and preview this in a new tab. So now you see we have opened this in a new tab, and at first glance, you notice that our menu here doesn't look right. So that's what we need to fix first. So we need to create a brand new menu by coming over here to appearance, and then we're going to say menus. Next, we're going to give this a name. I'm just going to call this main menu. And then I'm going to choose primary. Okay, it's very important we do that. And then I'm going to say create. So this now is going to create our main menu. So now that we have our main menu, the most important thing here is to make sure that you select the primary menu. And then over here on the left, you want to select all the pages. So I'm just going to say view all so I can see all the pages. And then I'm going to say select all and then add them to the menu. Okay, so now that they're in the menu, you can rearrange them however you want. So I'm going to drag this all the way down. So I want this to be the last thing. And I can see here we have 2 home pages. You see, that is why it's important for you to enable Divi, because what WordPress does is it creates one for you by default. All right, so now I've created my home, about, services, and contact, and then I'm going to say save menu. Okay, so now when we go back to our site and refresh it, take a look at the menu here. You'll see that it has been rearranged and everything looks a bit different. And oops, I have to save this first. So you want to make sure that you save these things, okay? So now if we take a look here at the top, we have home, about, services, and contact. Now something happened there. I think it's just to do with the caching. So now it's working fine. But you notice that our main page here is not the home page. So we need to change that. So we're going to come over here. Now, before we change the home page, I want to come over here to the plugins. It's very important that we disable anything that we're not using here. So for example, all these tools here are not being used. So I'm going to go ahead and temporarily deactivate them. We may need them later on. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and apply. And now pretty much everything is all clear. So with that now, I am going to now go to our settings, reading. Because we've already created our pages, our main landing page or the static page needs to be the home page. So I'm going to now come over here to static and then set this to home. It's very important we do this because when people land on our website, they need to land on the actual home page, not the blog page. Okay, so now that we've saved that, if we come back and refresh, now you can see this hello world here is a blog post. So that's not what we want as the home page. Okay, so now that I've refreshed, you can see that this is a blank page, which means we can get up and running super fast now. Okay, great. So now that we have this, we're in a position now to start setting up things for our website. And the first thing that I like setting up right away is the colors. So we need to decide what colors we're going to use. So I'm going to start off here with this service called Coolers. Okay, so let's start by creating this generator here. So you need to decide the color palette, of course. So I'm just going to press the space bar to cycle through the colors. Okay, so I'm going to go with, let's see. Sometimes it's very hard to choose colors, especially if you're doing it off the bat like what I'm doing now. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use this Rebecca purple, okay, as my primary color. So in order for me to lock this down so that I can choose the other complementary colors, this has to be my main color. All right, so I've locked it and I may not need all these other colors here. Okay, let's get rid of that. Okay, so now I'm going to hit the space bar again and I'm going to choose a color that's going to work with this purple color. So I'm just going to cycle through and you can see here we have this brownish, reddish brown. I'm not sure I like that. So let's continue on. And okay, I'm not sure how long it's going to take for me to get the color that I want, but okay, you know what? We're not going to waste too much time here. Let's go with this Rosie Cooper. So I'm going to first of all copy the first one by clicking over here. That's just to copy the hexadecimal value. And then back over here on our website, we need to go back to, in fact, we need to go into edit with Divi because we need to access the variables, which are right here. So we're going to click in here and then go to colors. And you can see by default, we have the primary and secondary color here is chosen for us. So I'm just going to go in and paste my primary color and then hit enter. So now my primary color has been entered. Next, I need to choose my second color here, which is my secondary color. I'm going to copy that, and then back over here, I'm going to go in and paste it just like that. Now we have our heading color and also our body text color. Usually what I like doing here is to just change that, make it a bit darker by just going with the 4s. And then for the text here, again, I just go on the scale, go down a little bit, perhaps 54, 54, 54. Okay, so that's my colors all set. I'm happy with that. I'm going to hit save variables and hit apply. Okay, so now that the colors are done, the next thing I normally work on is the fonts, because by default they're set to Open Sans. So let's go in. Now for my fonts, I'm going to use Poppins. I'm going to select that for my headings. And then for my body text size, I'm going to set this to Inter. Great. I'm going to go ahead now and select it and then say save variables. Okay. So far we've done the colors, we've done the headings, we've also done the body. Okay. So with that now, we're also going to need the sizes for all our fonts. Okay. So now we have to go to this website. It's called Utopia, Fluid Responsive Design. So these are all the values of the sizes that we need for our fonts, because we can't be using pixels and so on and so forth. Okay, we're definitely going to need to use a clamp. So here are the main settings. The width here, the minimum viewport, this is, I would say, perhaps the size of a very small mobile phone, 360, and then the font size needs to be 16, and then over here the type scale for that is going to be 1.2, but of course you can change it here if you want to. The maximum viewport, we've set that to 18, and the width is going to be 1366, and then the type scale major third. Okay, these are the settings that I normally use. So here is telling us the graph. So this is going to be my normal font size. So if we come here, it's going to be set to 0, which is right here. So we might as well go in and start adding all our font sizes. So I'm going to go in, and then I'm going to go to numbers. Okay, so the first thing here is going to be my body text. So I'm just going to call this body like that, and then paste the value. I'm going to say add. So the next one here is going to be my H1. Then back over here, I'm going to choose step 5, because this one here is the H1. I'm going to copy that, come back over here, paste it. Add another one. This one here is going to be H2. So back over here on our scale, it's going to be step 4, like that. So we need to copy these until we get to step 1, okay, because step 0 is our normal text, and then -1 is going to be our small text, and then -2 is going to be extra small. So let's go ahead now and enter all these other values one by one. So right now I'm on H2, add. So now that we've added all our values, all we need to do now is to save the variables. So you can see here we have all our headings, our small text, body text, and extra small. All right, so now that we're good, we're going to close this, and then we're going to save everything. The next step now is to upload all the images that we need to use on this website. Now, I've already gone ahead and used a website called Pexels, and it is right here. Now, there's a few of these that you can use. You can also use Unsplash, but I like using this. So you can just choose pretty much any keyword here, and it will show you all the images. And then you can go ahead and use these. They're all royalty-free images, which is fantastic. All right, so back over here, let's go ahead now and upload all our images. So I'm going to exit from here and then go back to our dashboard. Next, I'm going to come over here to media and go to media library. Okay, so let's add our media files. I'm going to hit select. So all my files here are in my downloads folder here. I'm going to hit shift, and then I'm just going to select all of them. And I think this is the last one. And then I'm going to say open. This just makes it easier for you to design your website, much faster. You don't want to waste too much time downloading a picture here, going there, downloading it here, and so on. You just want to make sure that you just upload everything, and then you can reference them as you're designing your website. Okay, so now that I have all my images in place, it's time now to start designing. Now, there's a website that I use called Mobbin. Now, this website is fantastic because it gives you some inspiration, and let me just show you where it is. And perhaps you may want to use this as well, because it really helps when it comes to coming up with ideas for your layouts. So here we go. You can see here it has different types of websites, and you can also have sections. So for example, if you want to create a hero section, you could come over here, and this will give you some inspiration on what sort of hero section you can create. And these are all based on companies that actually exist, which is very, very good. All right, so I'll leave a link to that in the video description, by the way, if you want something to reference as you're designing. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do now is to head over to my pages and go to the home page, because this is the one we are going to start with. So I'm going to go ahead now and click on edit with Divi. So I just want to quickly create my main hero area, because this gives me an idea of how it's going to look with my header and footer. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to add one equal column. Okay, and in this column, we're going to add a heading. In fact, we're going to need two headings, so I'm going to duplicate that. We're also going to need a paragraph text, so I'm going to click here on this plus button and then search for my text module. There we go. Great, and then I'm going to need two buttons side by side. So in order for me to achieve that, I'm going to click here on this plus button and then go to group, okay? And then in that group now, I can then say button. Okay, so for now, I'm going to add one button because I need to style it, and then I'm also going to create some presets around that. Next, I'm going to come over here to my section settings and then go to background. Now, it's important here because I want to start off with a background image. So I'm going to click here on this tab, click on this plus button, and then I am going to go to my media library. Now, remember, I'd already gone ahead and uploaded all these files ahead of time. So now I can go ahead and select that and then click on upload image. So now we have our image right here in the background, which is fantastic. Next, while my section is selected here, I am going to now adjust the size. So I'm going to come over here to design, and then I'm going to go to sizing. So under sizing, we want to make sure we're over here on the height. So we're going to set 100 VH, hit enter, and now we have a full screen of this design. Okay, so this is great. And the next thing I need to do, I want this content here all centered. So I am going to making sure I have section settings selected. On the layout here, we have Flexbox. So this is where you get to change your layout. So I'm going to center everything, and you can see now everything has been centered. Okay. So with that all centered now, I know there's a bit of work that needs to be done on this design, but I'm going to leave that for now. And then let me work on my header and my footer, because that is my priority right now. So I'm going to hit exit, and then I'm going to come over here to Divi and then go to the theme builder. This is where we create our global designs. So as you can see here, we can create our first global header. So I'm going to come over here, build global header. And then in here, we're going to add a single column. And in this column, we're going to add a menu like that. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is making sure that the menu is selected. I'm going to come over here to logo, and we're going to add a logo. So since I don't have a logo here in the media library, I need to find one and upload it from my computer. So I'm going to say select files, and then I want to find my logo. Okay, so here's my logo here. I'm going to say open, upload image, and you can see here it's gone in very, very big. So you may need to make some adjustments here. So in this case, I'm going to go to design, and then I'm going to look for my logo sizing, and I'm going to set this to, let's say, 200 pixels. Now you need to keep trying out the size that works for you depending on the logo. So I'm going to go with 100 pixels here because I think that's fine. Okay, so now that I have this, I'm going to go to my menu text, and I'm going to align it all the way to the right. You see that? Brilliant. Okay, so now it's time to further customize this. So I'm going to go into my section settings here, and I'm going to add a border on the bottom. So I'm going to come over here, and this is just my design style. So I'm going to go ahead and add my line, but it's a bit too aggressive. So I'm going to come in here and add some transparency to it. So let's drag this all the way down and then add our transparency. Normally, I think 11% will do. Okay, so let's work with that. All right. Now my padding here is a bit too much. So let's go ahead and fix that. So we're going to go to spacing. So for my padding, I'm going to say 1 rem, and then let's see how that looks. Okay, that's not too bad. But now you can see when I scroll, this thing goes off the screen. It doesn't stick to the top, and this may be a very good thing. So let's go ahead and stick this to the top. So I'm going to come over here to scroll effects. And over here on the scroll effects, we want to make sure that this sticks to the top by just doing that. Okay, brilliant. So now that it sticks to the top, in fact, we need to test it. So I'm going to save, exit, and then save one more time. Okay, so now if I click on visit site, we're going to open this in a new tab, and let's refresh this. Okay, now when I scroll, you notice that it sticks to the top. You see that? That's exactly what we want. But we can further customize this by, when it's scrolling, perhaps maybe we can change the background color. Okay, how about that? We want this to be a bit more stylish. So let's go ahead and fix that. So at the moment, let's go in and remove any spacing from all these elements. I'm going to go into my row here, go to spacing, and make sure there's no padding. Okay, great. I'm going to go back. We're also going to go into the column here, go into design, spacing, and then we're going to set this to 0, both the top and the bottom. Okay, and then we're also going to do this to the actual module itself. Again, I'm going to say 0, and then I'm going to click this chain to apply it both to the top and the bottom. All right, so now that we have all that, the next step now is to add the background color. But before we do that, let's just fix the sizes here. Now you notice that our text here is a bit too small, right? So we need to add our size to our text. So I'm going to go to menu text, and notice that we have our size here set to 14 pixels. This is where we want to go in, and let's set this to 1 rem for now. Okay, so now it's slightly bigger. I can also make it all caps. And I also want to go in and add some letter spacing to this. Okay, that's much better. And if I need to, I can also make this slightly bold. Let's go with semi-bold. Okay, so that's looking great. Menu text color. In fact, you know what? For now, let's leave this like this here. We don't want to waste too much time here. Let's exit, save. Now let's work on the footer. So we're going to say build global footer, because the footer that we have right now doesn't look great. And I'm sure you can agree with me that this doesn't look great at all. Look at that. Okay. So we need to start creating this. So I'm going to go in and let's add 4 items here. Okay. So in the first one, we're going to add a text module. And then we are going to duplicate this. Okay, in fact, you know what? The first one needs to be a heading like that. And then we're going to drag this to the top like that. Okay, so while we have this open, there's a few adjustments I need to make in here. So I'm going to go into our row here, and I can see the gaps here are a bit too aggressive. So let's go in and fix that. So I'm going to go in here, change that to 2 rem, do the same to the vertical. Okay. So now that I have this size, I want to make this global. This is where now you start to add all your presets. Okay. So I'm going to now apply my preset here. So I'm going to say create new from current, and then I'm just going to say new space or new spacing. You can name this whatever you want, and then I'm going to assign this as a default. Okay, so now we have our spacing. The next thing I also need to do is to go into our elements, go into our column here, and we are going to do the same too, because the spacing here is not looking good. So I am going to say 1 rem, and then I'm going to do the same, and then hit enter. Now, of course, if you want to make it slightly lower, you can go in and perhaps say 0.8, and vertical, you can do a 0.8 as well. Okay, and let's set this as a global. So instead of saying column 2 preset, I'm just going to say new space. Okay, apply this as a default and save. We're going to save one more time. Now we can continue building. So the next thing I'm going to come over here and do is to add a blurb. But what we're going to do different is we're going to remove the image part. So we're going to go to icon and image and delete that. Okay, I'm not sure why we have this error. I need to refresh this. Now, these are the sort of things that happen while you're designing. And remember, we are still in beta. Okay, so it looks like this is not looking good. No problem. We can delete that and start all over again. So this time, we're just going to do a heading and text. So again, just like before, there's our heading. Click on this plus button, and this time it's going to be our text. Okay, so quickly now, what we're going to do is to add our links. So we are going to say link 1, hit enter, link 2, and then you want to do link 3 and link 4. Okay, so now that we have our links, we're going to go in and add some blank URLs. So I'm going to go ahead and enter my first one here, do the same. Now, this is very important because this is where you can just go in and replace this. And ideally, you want to make this as a template as well, because you can use it over and over again. All right, so that's our last one. I'm going to say OK. And then for our text here, I'm going to go in and change that to about us, or even our company. Okay. Now we can set this to our heading text, so you can play around with this and see what size is better for you. All right, so we have our company now, and we have all that information, which is great. All right, so the next step now is to duplicate this a few times. So what I normally do at this stage is, in fact, let's go in here and add the company name. So to do that, we're going to come over here, and in our heading, we are going to, in fact, we're on the wrong one. We need this one here. Okay, so we need to go over here and click on dynamic, and this needs to be our site title. Okay, I know it's a bit too long. I'm going to go in and fix that. And then this needs to be our tagline. So I'm going to come over here and then say, where is the site tagline? There we go, site tagline. And I know there isn't one yet. That is why it's looking like that. But I'm going to say apply, and then I'm going to save. So at this stage now, I'm going to hit exit because I want to go ahead and set the site name. Okay, so we're going to do that by clicking save here first, and then we're going to go to our site name. So usually you find this at settings, general. Okay, so you see how long it is. So I'm just going to call this Divi 5 design. How about that? Okay, and then here I'm going to say learn how to design a website with Divi. Okay, so I think that looks great. So I'm going to scroll all the way down here and save changes. Okay, now if we do a quick preview, you should see now that our header here is sticking to the top, and also on the bottom here, we now have Divi 5 and we have our links, which is great. Now let's finalize this design here. So we're going to go back to our dashboard, and then we're going to go into Divi theme builder. So we're going to add a slightly light color here for the background because I don't want to design a dark background. I mean a dark footer. So here, I'm going to go into the background, and then we're just going to add a very slight gray like that. All right, so now that we have that, I'm going to go in, create another one. This time I am going to add text like that, and we're also going to need some social media icons. So I'm going to search for social. There we go. And then we can choose how many social items we need to add in here by duplicating this a few times. So this one, we're going to go in, go to the network, and then we're going to choose Instagram. And now you can see in real time, Instagram has been updated. And then we click this little arrow here. One more time, elements. Okay, so we need to go back into the social media follow, and then I'm going to go to the last one and then choose the network. And this time, this is going to be YouTube. There we go. All right, so now that I have my social media icons, let's use Flexbox to align these properly. So I'm going to click here in my row settings, and then what you want to do is to go into elements, okay? Because this is where you make the change. So now that I have that selected, I'm going to go into design, layout, and you can see our direction here is pointing down, which is column. We want it side by side, just like that. But we're not done yet because we want this, in space between, like that, okay? Now let's go to our text here, and we are going to make a few changes to this. So I'm going to go in, come back over here to content, and all these things I'm teaching you, they are very advanced, which is fantastic. So now I'm going to go in here and add dynamic data. So with our dynamic now, I want the site title. In fact, I want the current date. Okay, so we're going to select that. And the current date here is saying December the 6th. So here I'm just going to say Divi 5 design, which is the website name. Okay. Now the reason why I'm using this is because it just makes it easier. When the year changes, you don't have to go in and keep changing the year. So I'm going to go in here, add a custom one. And the custom one here, if you add a capital letter Y, it will just add the date like that. Okay, so I'm just going to add this pipe and a space. Okay, so that's our design 2025. I don't know, maybe that doesn't look great. Let's get rid of it. Let's just add a dash. Okay, I think that's better. I'm going to say apply. And then there's one more thing I'm going to do here, and that is to go in. You're going to go to design, spacing. So the padding top, I'm going to add 2 rem. And I'm also going to add a border above just to separate my content here. So with that selected, it's going to be 1 pixel. And I'm also going to add a color to this. So I'm going to drag this all the way down. And then I want to add transparency down to about 11%, or let's make it 10%, round it off. Okay, so now you can see it's much, much cleaner. I'm going to hit save. Okay, now we have created this already. Okay, so we don't need to stress about this anymore. So I just need to make some final fine tuning here. I'm going to go to the text size over here, and I'm going to set this to 1 rem. So it's slightly bigger. I'm going to do the same over here. Okay. So that's looking great. So now I can duplicate this a few times. So let's go in now and delete the other items we don't need. Oops, we need to be here on content elements. So the last two have nothing in them. So let's delete that, duplicate this, and one more time. And now we have all our elements set out correctly. So over here in our company now, I'm just going to say contact us. And in this one here, I'm going to say services. Okay, so I think we're good to go now. Let's see if we can align this and center it. Did that look great? Maybe not. Okay, let's try something else here. Let's go back one more. And then the column itself is what we need to align to the right. I think that looks much better. So let's do the same with the rest of them. So I'm going to go back. So you can see here we have several columns. We're going to do this to the last one. Select that, design, layout, and then over to the right. And then now we need the middle one. So we're going to go back again, content, and it's the second one. No, it's the third one. And then we're going to do the same, layout, and then align it to the right. Okay, so now that we have everything all set, it's time now to save this. So our footer is looking great now. I think the last thing I may want to do is to add a bit of padding to the top. So I'm going to go into my section here and go to spacing. So for my padding top, I'm going to add, let's say 4 rem. Let's see what that looks like. So we might need to increase this a few times. Okay, I think I'll go with 8. I'm going to save that. And now we have a footer for our website. Excellent. So let's do a quick preview and visit the site and look at that. Now we have a nice footer. Fantastic. So the next step now is to finalize our main header design here until we're happy with it, and then we can start designing the inside pages. All right, so let's go ahead now and say edit with Divi. So usually what I do in these instances is I use Lorem 2 for my text. So I'm going to search for my Lorem 2 website here. So I'm going to be copying and pasting the content here as I am designing. So let's bring it closer. There we go. Okay. So this is going to be my first sort of text over here. So I'm going to go ahead and paste it. So that's going to be like my mini, sort of like my mini menu. So I'm going to come over here and go to my heading text, set this to heading 5. And then for my size here, oops. In fact, before I add the size, let me sort out my colors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a color that I'm going to use throughout this. So I'm going to pick a color and I'm going to go with a very light gray. Okay, so I'm going to go with F5 and I'm going to save this as my light color. I need to give the variable a name. So let's call this light gray. Okay, so every time you want to add a color, this is where you'd go in and add your colors so that they're easier to find. So remember, we added some variables right in the beginning of this training, and they're right here. So if you go to numbers, you're going to notice that these are the variables that we entered. It's time now for us to start using them to make our design process much easier. So as I mentioned, I'm going to start with this one. In fact, you know what? Because we can't see what's happening in the background, it may be a good idea to just go in and disable this for now. So I'm going to go back to my background here and let's go and delete this for now. Okay. Just to make things easier for us. So I want to start off with this tiny text here. I'm going to select that. And then I'm going to now go to design. Okay, this is where I can go in. Remember, it's a heading text, it's a heading 5. So I'm going to make it all caps. And I'm also going to do something different here for my heading text color. Remember, we created this light gray. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. I know we can't see it, but I guess this is the best way I can do this. Okay, next we have the secondary heading here. I want this to be a heading 1 like that. And the size, again, remember we created a variable for this. So we're going to come over here and set it to heading 1. Next, we're going to go over here to our lorem text and we are going to choose our text like that by copying it. And then we are going to just replace our default text over here. So let's go ahead and paste this. Okay, so far so good. Now we have the paragraph text. So as we are doing this, it just makes the whole design process much easier. Let's go ahead now and copy a paragraph text like that. And then I'm going to go in and paste it. Okay, great. So now that we have our paragraph text, remember, we have our sizes. So I'm going to go into the design tab here and then go into the text. Next, I'm going to set this from 14 and then I'm going to choose my body text. So here it is. Select that. Now it's the right size. So now that I have the right size, I might as well set this as a default. So I'm going to go in here, new preset from current styles, and then I'm just going to name this body. And then I'm going to make it default. Now, this is how you start to make Divi very intentional and much easier to work with when you start creating all this. Okay, so let's hit save. Next, we need to stylize this button here because we don't have a custom button. So I'm going to select it. And then in the design tab, I'm going to go to button. And then I'm going to activate use custom styles for button. Now I know this takes a very long time to create all this, but this is a proper way to design your websites. And once you master this, you are going to thank me one day. All right, so this is going to be my primary button. So I'm going to set this to my primary color. Okay. Now we're not going to go fancy with this. Okay. And for our button border, we're going to do the same. We're going to come over here to our button border color. Set it to primary. Okay, now it's our button text because right now we can't see it. So again, we're going to go in, add our light gray, and now we can read what's in the button. So now that we have our button set, okay, this is time now to set it as a preset. So I'm going to come over here, new preset from current styles, and then I'm going to say button primary. Okay, oops, button primary. And then I'm going to assign this as a default because that's going to be our main button across the whole website. I'm going to save that. Next, I'm going to duplicate this. And then I'm going to go into the second one, okay? And I'm going to do something different here. I'm going to remove the button primary, okay? And then we're going to go in and customize this. So instead of having this background color here, I'm going to change that. Oops. Let's delete that. This is strange. I don't know why this is not changing. Let's save this and make sure we have everything all saved. Okay. So normally when things don't work out here, I just refresh just in case it's something to do with the caching. All right. So back over here, use custom styles for button. Now remember, it's off. Now we can keep it on. Now notice what's happening now. Everything has been reset. So I'm going to go into my button background, click in here and set this as a secondary color. Okay. Button border, we're going to do the same. Set this to the secondary color. And then on the top here, set this as a preset. So I want to say new preset from current styles. So I'm going to say button secondary. Now I don't have to keep just redesigning my buttons over and over again. So button secondary. Now I can't assign this as a default now. So I just want to go ahead and save this preset. Of course, at this stage, you can go ahead and, set all different buttons, styles, outlines, and so on. But I'm going to keep things very simple here. Next, I'm going to go into my group because I want these buttons side by side. So I'm going to go into my group here, go to my layout, and you notice here we have Flexbox. I'm going to do that, and now you can see they're now side by side. So I like how it looks right now, which is fantastic. So all I need to do now is a few tweaks. So first of all, I'm going to go into this paragraph text, and then because it's too wide, I'm going to do a few changes to this. So I'm going to go to sizing, and then over here on the width, I'm going to set this to 70 characters. Hit enter. I'm going to do the same here because the width is a bit too much. So let's try. Okay, so I think 70 characters works. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go in and take a look and see what it looks like on the tablet view, and then also on the phone. But on the phone, you can see everything, gets cut off. So this is where I am going to just reset this, okay, to auto. Okay, do you see that? Go on to this one here, set this to auto, and hit enter. So now everything looks great in all devices, or pretty much. Okay, great. Now I want to make this bold. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm now going to say heading. Right now it's regular, so let's set this to bold. All right, so we might as well set our colors now because we are ready to add our image. So I'm going to go in here, set our color, do that to the paragraph text as well. So I'm going to go in, color, that, and then save. Next, I'm now going to go into my main section, contents, and let's add our background image by coming over here. And now we can add it back in. Okay, so now that we have our image, you can still see there's so much going on, right? And we can't really see what our text says. So what we need to do now is to make this image a bit darker, okay? So we are going to go to the gradient. So let's start by adding a gradient. So over here, the gradient I'm going to add is a dark one. So you're going to come all the way down here to black, okay? And then I'm just going to move this down to about, let's say 80%. Okay, great. And then on the second one, I'm going to drag this all the way down and then bring this all the way down here as well. So now we have transparency. So we have black to transparency. Next, I am going to change the direction because right now you notice that it's top to bottom. I know you can't see it right now, so I'm going to place the gradient above the image so you can see it. Do you see that? In fact, that looks really cool because it's dark at the top and I can slightly read what it says here, which I think is cool. So what we may need to do here is to drag this further down like that. And now it's easier to read. So let's go down 20%, okay? And leave this as it is. Let's leave it at 100%. Okay, so now we can easily read this, which is brilliant. Now, what I normally do is set it to 90 degrees, okay? So when you do that, now the darkness is on the left. So it's your preference. If you prefer it on the left, you can go ahead and set it to 90 degrees. If you prefer it from the top, again, it's up to you. So you can play around with this. You can see here, I think 20% works great. Okay, but I hadn't seen how this one here looks, so I guess I'm going to go with the 180%. Okay, now let's do a quick preview and look at that. Isn't that cool? Right. Okay, so that's looking fantastic. I like that. I may go in at some stage and change what these two buttons say. Okay, so at this stage, normally I like to do an inspect, and then I usually drag this just to make sure that everything looks okay in different screens. Perfect. I like that. Okay, so that works. Let's get rid of that. Now it's time to work on our next section. Okay, so to do that, we're going to go back into Edit with Divi, click here on this plus button, and then we're going to go to equal columns. Right, so here we're going to have, let's create something that we're going to use over and over again. And again, this is something that you're going to learn. You're going to love this, because once you master how to design this way, I mean, it just makes the whole design process much, much easier. Okay, so I'm going to add two headings here. So I'm going to add the first heading, and you can see it right here. Okay, but what I'm going to do different here is I'm going to add another module inside this module. So I'm going to click here on this plus button. In fact, you know what? While this is selected, okay, we're going to go into our elements, and then I'm going to say add elements. And this is the heading that I'm looking for. All right, so now these two are one module. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start with the first one. Okay, for the very first one. So let's add our lorem text. So I'm just going to grab something from here like that, and then I'm going to paste it. Now I'm going to go into design, heading text, and I'm going to set this to heading 5. Set the size. Remember, we have a size for this, and let's make it all caps. Okay, and then the next step now is to add a bit of letter spacing. Now I already noticed something that I don't like right off the bat, because it's applying that setting to the bottom one, which is a bit weird. Okay, so, okay, letter spacing is what I'm looking for. There we go. I got a bit distracted here because things aren't looking the way I want. Okay, let's align this to the center. All right, so why is it working like that? So let's go into this one here. Okay, so now that we have that one selected, let's see if we can change this to perhaps a heading 2. Change the size. No, it didn't work. Okay, which is a shame, because I really wanted to group these together, but it's okay. You know why? Because we can create a new group based on this. So let's just create a new group. Okay, and in there, we're going to add what we've just created. So let's just drag and drop it in here. So now it's in the group. Let's bring this section here to the top. All right, so we have this group now, and in this group, I can go in and add my second heading that I wanted to add in. So now we can go ahead and center it. So we're going to say heading text, center. All right, so now that it's centered, let's name this. So that's going to be the main text. So sometimes you may find that I just go in and place it in here. Sometimes I have to hunt for it. It just depends, you know, but we can do inline editing. So I'd like to make sure that my text here is capitalized like that. Okay. So the final thing I need to do is just to make sure that my heading 1 here is set correctly with the variable. Like that. Should I go with heading 1 or heading 2? I don't know. Let's go with heading 2. It's a bit too much. Okay, I think that's much better. Okay, so you can see this is our group. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to save this because I'm going to use it over and over again. Okay, this is why this is important. So I'm going to go in this little dots here, and I'm going to say save to library. Okay, I'm going to give this a name, and I'm going to call this page titles. Like that. And I'm also going to make sure that I set this to titles, because I want to have all these titles where I can use over and over again. Okay, so now that I have all that, I'm going to say save to library, and I can use it, you know, whenever I want. All right, so that's our page title. We can continue on designing now. Next, I think I am going to add my about. Okay, so let's get rid of this section, because we can add our about in here, can't we? All right, so let's go with 3 items. And in those 3 items, we are going to need a blurb. Right, so this is where, again, we're going to continue on with our design. I'm going to go in here, choose my text like that. And then I'm just going to replace my paragraph text. And I'm going to take some of this because I need to use that for the heading over here. Okay, so now that I have this, the next step now is to go in and just make sure that it's set correctly in terms of the sizes. So I have the title text, and we are on heading 4, remember. I can change this to heading 5, and then over here on the title text size, I'm going to go in and set this to H5, and I may want to make it bold or semi-bold. There we go. I really like that. Okay, so the text, the body text itself is fine. I think, yeah, it's fine. It's got our clamp. Let's just make sure. Yeah, it's fine. Next, we are going to go into our image here. So I'm going to go into my image and icon, and let's select our first one, upload image. Okay, so that's our first item. So with this selected, I might as well go in and add my, should we add a call to action to this, or should we just leave it? In fact, I think this should work fine. Okay, so we're going to duplicate this a few times, drag it over, drag the bottom one over. So it's all 3 of them. I'm now going to go into this one here, change the image. Great. Now I need to change the final one. And for that one, how about we use this one? Great. Okay, so we have our 3 images here, and so far so good. What I may need to do is to just change the titles and the paragraph text, but everything looks great. Now I just need to adjust my padding here. So I'm going to go in, design, and then for my spacing here, let's go with 8VW. Okay, I think that's a good size. Apply that to the bottom as well, and I think we're good to go. Now there's something that I noticed, and that is when I go to my row settings here, the size is not correct. We're on 1080, okay? Ideally, we need to be on 1366. That's a very good size for our rows, okay? So with that selected, I'm going to make this a preset. So I'm going to say row sizing. Okay. Because if we do this, then we know that our rows are all going to look great. So I'm going to save that as a preset. And I think I saved it as a default. I need to undo that. I think the best thing to do is to just set it as row 1366 pixels and then save it, but not as a global. Okay, I'm just going to apply it whenever I need it as I'm designing my site. Okay, so we've done quite a bit so far. Now let's hit save and let's do a quick preview. All right, so now if I scroll down, okay, we have our section here, and I think that looks great. Let's now work on the next one. And for this one here, I just want to add a bit of information about our company. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So back over here, we are going to create a new section, but this time it needs to be 2 equal columns. Okay, sometimes I go 2.5, but for this, it needs to be 2 equal columns. In the first one here, I'm going to add an image. And let's go ahead and choose our image. So we're going to go in here, and the image I'm going to choose is this one. Okay, now over here is where we can add all our text. So I'm going to search for my heading, and then after my heading I am going to have a normal text module. Okay, so we are going to do something different here. I'm going to go in and, oh yeah, remember our section here, we set a size to our section. So I'm going to select this and let's go to our sizing. Okay, so on our sizing here, in fact, it's our spacing. You see we have our 8 VW, right? I want to set this as a preset. So I'm just going to call this section 8 VW. Now you can name this whatever you want. Okay, I'm going to save that. Okay, so now I'm going to come over here, set it to that, and you can see now the size is adjusted. So for this one here specifically, I can go in background, and then I'm going to add my light background. Now the reason why I do this is because it just separates my sections. Okay, now I can go in and add my lorem text in here. Okay, so I've added my lorem text, so I can just go in now and just make sure that this is the right size. So let's go to heading, and then I'm going to come over here and set this to heading 1, and I also want it bold like that. Okay, so far so good. I may need to add a bit of line height here because that doesn't look right. Okay, I think that's better. I'm going to go ahead now and save. Now we're missing something, which is our page title, which is right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this and then drag it over here to the bottom. Now another way I could do this is by going to the library. Okay, we can achieve the same thing. We just go to the library and get it from there. In fact, if you want to see how that's done, I can just click here on this plus button, go to group, and then I'm going to say add from library, and here it is. Now I can say use this module, and here it is. It has been added, which is brilliant. Next, I'm going to add another section, but this time I want people to be able to opt in. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go with equal columns. And remember, we set our size. So I'm going to come over here to the top, 8 VW. And then what I need in here is the email opt-in. So I'm going to search for email opt-in. There we go. So it has all our colors done, which is fantastic. So what I want to do now, again, I'm going to make sure I select this module, go into design, layout, and I'm going to change the layouts just like that. Now you see how easy that is. The next thing I'm going to do now is to add a bit of padding inside. So I am going to now go to, in fact, this button here doesn't look right. There's a few things I need to change here. So let's go into our content. So let's just close that. So we're going to go into our title text first. So this is heading 2. So let's make sure that this is set to the right variable for heading 2. And then this is our body text. So we need to make sure that our text also looks right. Where's our body text? Okay, description text. And this is where we need to set this to the right size. There we go. And we need this to be body. There we go. Right. So everything's looking great so far. Now it's spacing that I need to sort out. So I'm going to go with 3 rem, the top and bottom. And then I'm going to do the same to the left and right. Okay, did you see that transformation? Great. So what I'm going to do now is to make sure that my button here is set correctly. So I'm going to come over here to button, and okay, we have our sizing here, which is what we don't need. So I guess something is wrong. Let's save and refresh. I guess this is what happens sometimes when you're using the beta. Right. Okay. So let's see if our options are going to come in. So let's go to our button. Oh, there we go. So you need to switch it off and back on. All right. So what we need here is the correct color, which is our secondary. Now you can see it looks better. If I go to my button here, I'm going to change the border just like what I did. Bang. All right. So now it's looking okay. The next thing we may need to do is to remove the last name on the fields. And I think it's done over here on the content fields, and then I can remove the last name. Okay. Now I need to replace this with my lorem text. Now that I've added all my text, I may also want to add this as a background section that matches this opt-in. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to click here, choose my color, and I think that looks okay. Let's save this and let's do a quick preview. All right, so that looks great. That looks fine. Okay, it's not showing. That's because I haven't entered all the information, but usually it just shows, but it's not showing right now. But I'm happy with the design so far. What I may need to do is to make sure that this is set to the right width, which is right here. I can go into my layout. Oh, I thought this was on the layout. Let's see. Okay, we're going to go back over here to our elements. Okay, so I think I did not add this correctly. So what I'm going to do now is to go to the sizing, because this is where I think it is. And sure enough, here it is. Boom. And now we have the correct sizing. Okay. I think I'm happy with this. The only final thing that I'm going to do here is this section here is a bit too big for the content that it has. So we're going to go to spacing and reduce this. Okay, I think that should work. 6. Yeah, I think 6 works fine. Let's save that. So that's it. Our homepage is designed. We are now going to start designing the inside pages, the about us, the services, the contact, but I have something very exciting that I'm going to show you, which will make this process very, very easy. So let's go ahead and start designing the other pages. So far, this is what we have. We have our main landing page. We also have our services here. We have a bit of information about our company. And then here we have the opt-in. So the next step now is to start working on these pages, the about, services, and contact page. So at the moment, if we go to this page, you can see here it's blank. There's nothing really on it. So what I want to do is create a template for all my pages. So let's head over here now and create our template. So I'm going to come over here to Divi, and then we're going to go to the theme builder. Next, we're going to click here on this plus button. We're going to build a new template. And we are going to say this template is for all pages, but we need to exclude it from the home page. So we're going to come over here and say home. Now, if there's any other pages that we're going to be designing that needs to be excluded from this template, we can just come over here and specify them over here. For now, let's click on create template. Next, I am going to now go in here, build the template, and we are going to start from scratch. So here for our main header area, I'm going to click on this plus button and add a row. Now what I normally do here is I add a title for this page, and I want to dynamically pull the page title. So let's first of all search for our heading, because ideally this works great if this is a heading. So now that we have our heading selected, I'm going to click on it. And then over here, when you hover over the heading, you get this option to add dynamic content. So our dynamic content here is going to be our post archive title. Great. Now that we have that, I'm just going to say apply. Next, I'm going to come over here to design heading text, and you can see here it's set to heading 1. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in and add my size to match my heading 1. So I'm going to click here on heading text size and then select heading 1. Okay, so far so good. Next, I need to work on my section settings here. So I want to give it a specific height. So I'm going to come over here to sizing. Over here on the height, I'm going to say, let's start off with 40 VH. Now, right now, I can't see how big it is unless I hover over it. So why don't we, first of all, center this. So I'm going to go to layout. And then, in fact, let's try this. Let's see how that looks. Okay. But for this to really work, I need to give it a background color. So I'm going to click on my section settings here, go to contents, and then background. So this is where I can add my background color. And you can see here, we already have our background color. So I'm going to go with the primary color because that's the main color for our website. And then for my text here, I just need to make it light so it's easier to read. So I'm going to click on the text and then go to design, heading, and then under the H1, I'm going to scroll down until I find my color, which is right here. So I'm going to click in here and we're going to go for this light gray. All right, so now my page title has been created. So far, I'm going to hit save. Next, I need to create the content area. So I'm going to come over here, add equal columns. So what I'm going to do different in here is I am going to add a module called post content. Okay. Next, I'm going to make this 100%. So this row settings for now is set to 80%. So let's go to sizing so you can see it. So there we go. We have 80%. So I want this at 100%. Hit enter. And I also need the maximum width to be 100%. And I'm going to hit enter. Okay, great. Now I need to remove the padding from my section settings. So I'm going to come over here, go to spacing, and then I'm going to zero this out. So top and bottom. So far, I think I'm happy with that. Now, the final thing I need to do as well is to go into my module settings here. And I'm going to make sure for my body text, this is set to body. Okay, now let's hit save and exit. So here we need to save one more time. Okay, great. So now when we go to our page, in fact, we don't need this right now. Let's refresh this page and you should see a page title now. There we go. So now we have a page title. It's time now to add all our content. So for our about page, services page, you can see it has the titles on it. Same applies with the contact. Right, so let's start working on the about page. Okay, so for the about page, we need to click on edit with Divi. And then I'm just going to go in here and add an equal column, group, and then I'm going to say add from library. Now remember, we have our page titles. So I'm going to go ahead and select that and use this module. Okay, so this is going to be the entry text to our main page. Now I want you to see what it looks like when I preview this page. Right, there we go. So you can see here, all my content is now going into that space. All right, so why don't we go in now and start populating this? So the next step now is to add a equal column. We're going to go to our group, and then in this group here, we're going to design our theme. So I'm going to start off with an image. And the next part is going to be the name. So I'm going to add it as a heading. So I'm going to come over here. And then I'm also going to add a brief description. But with this description, I'm going to do something different. Okay. So I'm going to add an accordion. Okay, so with that, in fact, you know what? Maybe we should not use the accordion, but we should use the other one. I forgot what it's called. Toggle. Okay, toggle. So in this toggle now, we're just going to say read bio. Like that. And this is where our bio information is going to be. So why don't we go in and add some dummy text? So I'm just going to grab this like that. And then I'm going to replace the text. Okay. So now we're going to go in and start designing this. So first of all, I'm going to go into my group settings here. And then I'm going to set my size. In fact, let's just go ahead and add an image. So we're going to go to elements, image, and we're going to start off with this one, upload image. Okay, great. So now we need to adjust the size for our design here. So I'm going to go into my group settings, and then over here, I'm going to go to sizing. So there's a few things we can do here. We can add the size by a percentage. So I'm just going to add a random size here and then fix things later. Okay, so I'm going to go with 30% for now for my width. And that's going to be our size. All right. So here we can go in and add our name. So let's head over to our text here. Okay, so that's our name. And I also need to set this to the right heading. So right now it's on heading 1. I want it on heading 5. And then I'm going to add my size. So I'm going to come all the way down here, click on heading, and then choose H5. Yeah, I think that works fine. Now you can see the spacing here doesn't look fine. So I'm going to go in and zero this out. So by default, it's set to 30. So I'm going to set it to 0 and 0, hit enter. And then I'm going to go in now and add my specific sizing. So for example, here, I'm going to add 4 pixels. Ideally, you want to be using your RAM, or you want to be using your fluid sizing. So for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm just going to add 4 pixels. Okay. And then for the bio area here, for the margin top, I'm going to set this to 8 pixels. Okay, so I can see here there isn't much of a difference. I mean, it's okay, but the difference isn't much. So what I'm going to do is set this to 16. And then set the top one here to 8. In fact, I put it on the wrong place. It needs to be over here on the margin. So we're going to say 8 pixels. Right, so now I can go in and further customize this. So I want to go in here into my group settings and go to my padding and set this to rem. So I want this to be pretty much all around. Okay, in fact, that's a bit too much. So we're going to go with 1 rem. Okay, so I think 1 rem works much better. And then with that now, I'm going to add a very light gray onto this background. Okay, so we're going to go to content. And then we're going to come over here to our background. Then we're going to add our very light gray. Okay, so that's our very light gray background. Fantastic. So far so good. I think I like how it looks. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save this to the library. So I'm going to come over here and save to library just in case I want to use it next time. So I'm going to call this person. Save to library. Okay. So let's duplicate this a few times. But you see that our layout here has structured this in a vertical way. So we need to change that by coming over here to row settings. Next, we're going to come over here to elements because we need to be in the column. Right, so in our column here, we're going to come on to our design tab and then make sure I change the direction here to row. So you see that that's much better now. And what I may also want to do here is to separate these or maybe add space around. Maybe space around looks better, okay? Because this one here looks a bit aggressive. Okay, so let's do space around. So all I have to do now is to go in and change these images and then update the names. So I'll do this one here quickly for you. So with that selected, I'm going to go to my image and then choose this one right here, upload image. Okay. And then we're going to change the name. We'll come over here, text. And this one here is Mike. Okay, and then we need to do the final one. So now that we have all our images and our names updated, we're going to hit save. And also we need to give a bit of spacing around our section here. So we're going to go to the top here. We have a preset. We're going to select that and then hit save. Okay, now let's do a quick preview and see what this looks like. So now when I go down here, you can see we have our 3 images here. When I click on the bio, we can read the bio like that. But there's one thing I noticed here, and that is this is quite thin. The width needs to increase to about, let's see. So let's go to our design here, layout. I'm sure I have a preset here. No, it's on the sizing. Sorry. There we go. 1366. So I think this here works much better. I'm going to save that. And then let's do a quick preview again. Right. I think that's much better now. Okay. Now this preview here is also much easier to read as well, which is good. Right. Great. Now, if I want to modify this, I can go ahead and add social media icons. So we can link to their LinkedIn profiles and so on. But I'm not going to, waste time on that for now. I'm going to leave it as it is because right now I think it looks great. Now it's time to work on our next section. So we're going to go back and let's go ahead and click on this plus button and let's go for 2 columns. Okay, so just like before, we are going to add a group and we're going to add, oops, that's a mistake. I need to add a single column because I need to add the page title. So we're going to go in single column. Okay, so now that we've selected our group, we are going to add a page title here from the library. So I'm going to click here on the group settings and then that's weird. Okay. Group and then add from library. Okay, I need to remember that. When you do a long tutorial, sometimes you forget one of the basic things. All right, so now I have my section. Let's just go ahead and add a light color here to differentiate my section. So I'm going to come over here to background and then for my color here, I'm going to go with this light gray. Okay, great. So now I can go in and add further content. So I'm going to add 2 columns. And in the left column here, I'm going to add an image. So this could be, information about maybe the company. So I am going to go with, say, this image here, upload image. And then on the right here, we're also going to add some text. So let's start with a heading. And then we're going to add some paragraph text. Next, we're going to come over here to our section and we are going to make sure that we have nice padding for our section. And then finally, what I'm going to do here is to go in and adjust my size. So I'm going to go to design and then under sizing, I'm going to go with my larger row. Okay, so I guess maybe that's it for now. If I need to, I can add another section and add even more information if I need to. But for now, I think this is fine. We have the team here. We have a bit of information here on the bottom as well. And then I'm going to hit save. Okay, so let's preview this. And that's looking great. Here's the bio. And here's the description area. Okay, brilliant. Let's move on to the next page, which is the services page. So on the services page here, you can actually click on it and then go in and start working on it. So I'm going to say edit with Divi. So just like what we did before, I'm going to go in here, add a single column and add a group, add from library. And then what I need here is the page titles. And then I'm going to say use this module. So now I have my page title. So you can easily go in here and rename this to services like that. And then you can just describe, what you do. And again, you can just go in here and adjust the text. Okay, so now with that, we're going to go in and, before on the about, we created this layout. What speeds up your design workflow is to actually save this as a template. That way you can use it over and over again. So what I'm going to do quickly here is to go in and make sure I have the right size. So for my heading text here, I'm going to set this to heading 2, and then I'm going to set my size. So over here, we're going to go to H2, and our paragraph text here is fine. So I may also want to center this. Right, I may want to center this. So let's go ahead and do that. In fact, you know what? Why don't we, should we add more content to this, or context? Perhaps. Anyway, it's a good idea anyway, so you can see how things are done. So I'm going to click here on this plus button and go to icon list. So with this icon list here, I'm going to go to the first one because that's the one I want to make a lot of changes to. So I'm going to say check. And I'm going to go with this one. Now let's increase the size. So I want to come over here to design icon. So for our icon size, let's see if we can use, okay, I was trying to use these. Yeah, hopefully that works. Okay. And then for my text here, I'm going to set it to my body text. Let's go ahead and set this to body. There it is. Okay, so I think that looks much better now. So what I'm going to go in and do here is I'm going to go back to my icon here, delete these two because those two are not stylized, and then I'm just going to duplicate this a few times. Okay, so with that now, I need to space things out a little bit. So with the whole thing selected, let's see if we can add some line height. So we're going to go to body text. I'm sure we can do it over here. So first of all, okay, that's set to body. So for our line height, okay, yes, it's working. So let's go to 2.2. And then all we have to do now is to go to each and every one of these and then just update it. So I'm going to go to this one and change the text. So as always, I'm going to use my trusted here, lorem 2. We're going to go in and paste. I'm on the wrong page. Let's just drag this over here. So we're going to paste, move on to the next one and do the same, and then do it to all of them. I've gone ahead and updated all the content here using my lorem text. So I know I'm going to use this layout at some point. So this is the right time to go in and save this to my library. So I'm going to go ahead and select it over here. And we are going to click on these three little dots here. We're going to say save to library. Okay, so the section name is going to be, okay, let me just call this about. How about that? So the category here is section. And this is a very, very smart way of working because it's going to save you a lot of time. So every time you create something that you know is going to be used over and over again, just save it as a library item. All right, so now that I have that back here on our services, okay, instead of recreating everything, what we're going to do now is get rid of what we've done here, okay? Then let's just refresh this so that at least what we've saved in the library is there. So to add our item from the library, we click on this plus button and then add from library. So you can see here where now we have this about section. Okay, so with that now we can do a few things. First of all, let's just delete this here on the top. Okay, so what we want to do is to duplicate this a few times, okay, because we want to reuse it. Okay, so this could be our service 1. So let's just name this service 1. And then this is the information about the service. And then we can duplicate this. Okay, now this is going to get very exciting. I'm going to duplicate this, but I'm going to reverse the content. So I'm going to go in here on my section settings, then design, layout. So you can see my direction is pointing that way towards the right. So we want to change the direction. And now you can see it has totally flipped, which is exactly what we want. So now we can go in and change this. In fact, this becomes service 2. 2. That's the information. And then over here, we're going to change this image to something else that matches the service. So I'm going to go in, and this time I'm going to go with, okay, let's try this one here. There we go. So let's say that's our service 2. So what I may want to do here as well is to add a bit of spacing between these two items. So I'm going to go in and go to design, spacing, and then I'm just going to add a margin of 3 rem. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, I think that works. I'm going to save that. So now we have our service 1, we have our service 2. We may also want to add a service 3. So I'm going to duplicate this. Just rename this to service 3. Okay. And of course, I need to reverse this. So I'm going to come over here and then go to my layouts, and then change it to how it was before. So now we have service 3. Okay, let's go ahead and save, and let's do a quick preview. So there we go. So we have our services here. So we have service 1, service 2, and service 3. So another thing that we could also do here is to add a button here which directs people to that actual service for inquiries. So that's what we need to do next. So let's go ahead and add the button for the first one. So we're going to say button like that. And then we're just going to go in here and say inquire. Now already our button is matching our style, so I don't even need to do much. So with that now, you just want to add this button pretty much everywhere else. So let's do that again here. So you can say inquire, or you can say contact us, or you could even say book. Okay, so contact us. And let's do the final one here. Oops, I'm supposed to be adding a button. Right, there we go. Right, so we've added our button here. So everything pretty much looks okay. All right, so our services page here is looking great. There's also other things you can add, like maybe a gallery of companies you're working with and so on. But of course, you can pretty much update this to however you want. Next, let's work on the contact page. So I'm going to come over here. And as you can see here, it's blank. We're going to say edit with Divi. And just like before, we're going to go in and add the page title. So we're going to go to equal columns, group, and then add from library, page titles. And then I'm going to say use this module. Okay, so now that I have my page title, I can delete what I have here on the top. And what I need in here is 2 columns. So I'm going to go like that. And then in the left one here, I'm going to have a contact form. But before I add my contact form, I need to add a heading like that. And then click here on this plus button. And this is where I can add my contact form. Here we go. On the right here, I'm going to do something similar. I'm going to add a heading. And then the address. So this is going to be text that I need. But if you want to make it a bit stylish, we can use the blurb. Okay, and I'll show you in a moment how we can do this. So with the blurb selected here, we are going to, so let's first of all start with, let's say, the phone number. Okay, so that's going to be our title. And then for our image and icon here, we're going to make sure that we choose icon. And then in here, let's look for a phone icon. Oops. Okay, so the one we're going to go with is this one here. So now we need to rearrange things and make sure everything is looking okay. So we're going to come over here to design, layout. So let's start off with maybe trying out this. Okay. So I guess maybe this works. Yeah, I think that works. So now let's stylize this. So what we need to do is to reduce the icon size. Okay, so right now it's set to 96. So let's start off with, let's say, 24. Does that work? I guess it works. So for the phone number, that's going to be a title. So we're going to go to our title text here and set this to H5 and then set the size for heading 5. So we're going to come over here. Okay, that to me is slightly bigger. So let's go with H6. So you're going to come back over here and set this to, should we change this? Okay, so I noticed we don't have a H6 here. Anyway, that's fine. No, that's too small. All right, what we'll do is we'll keep H5 on there, okay? And then what we may need to do now is to go in and add our phone number. So I'm going to go in. So it's plus 44 7 9999 10 7 5 9. Okay, so that's our phone number. We can duplicate this a few times because the next one is going to be the address. So we're going to go in. So instead of saying phone number, we're going to say address. And then we're going to add the address in here. But what's important here is to make sure we change the icon. So let's see if we can find something to do with location. And sure enough, there is a location. So maybe I'll go with, okay, we could go for a map or this pin. It's pretty much up to you. I'm going to go with the pin. So we got the phone number, the address, and what else do I need? All right, so let's add our titles here. So for this one here, it's going to be contact us or send us an email. And then for this one here, it's going to be contact us. So I think that looks great. Let's go ahead and save this. So we're going to do a quick preview, and I can see right away that we need to sort out the padding for our section here. So I'm going to go back in, select my section, and then over here on the top, we're going to set this to 8VW. Okay, so now my preset is working. I'm going to come back and refresh. Okay, so that spacing now looks way much better. So we've got our contact and we have all the information that we need. So as I'm looking at this footer here, it's up to you if you want to keep it this way or you want to make it dark mode. I'm sure by now you know how to just change the color and make it dark mode, but I'm going to leave this as it is. So that's our front facing website, and we have our services page here. It has all the information we need. Hang on, what happened here? Okay, I may need to refresh this page. Okay, so I think I'll just leave this as it is. The phone number and address is fine. If you need to add any social media icons, you can do that. But of course, we have them right here on the bottom, so it may not be necessary for us to do that. So let's just review our pages here. So I'm going to go back in and say edit with Divi. So what's important when you design your pages is to make sure everything looks great on all devices. So I'm going to come over here to tablet, and we can see here that on tablet, I mean, it's not too bad, but when I go to the phone here, again, this doesn't look bad at all. It's pretty much okay, which is fantastic. So you want to do this to all the pages. So for now, I am going to exit. We're going to go to the next one, which is our services. Okay. So let's just go here, edit with Divi. Now, I think we have an issue here with the caching. Sometimes it's not rendering correctly. So let's do a quick preview again. Okay, now you can see it's rendering correctly. Okay, so with this, again, same thing. You want to make sure that everything is looking great. On the about here, again, we need to go in and just make sure that everything looks great. So I'm going to click here on the tablet. Now, do you notice that here on the tablet, things don't look great? So what we need to do is to go in and sort this out. So I'm going to go in here, go to the column, because that's what has all these three items in. So let's go to design, layout, and you can see here the direction is row. So I need to change that to column. But remember, we set this to 30%. So we need to change that. So we're going to go in one by one. So we're going to go back, and so we need to go to elements, column, and then we've got these three groups. So it's the group that I set to 30%. So I'm going to go into the first one here, sizing, and then you can see here is 30%. So I'm going to set it to 100%. Okay. So now we have it as the right size, or if you want, you can just say auto. That works fine too. So we're going to do the same over here. Set this to auto. And then for the last one, we're going to do the same. So all this is just to make sure that everything looks great on all devices. So here it looks fine. Okay. So let's save this. Okay, so this is our about page. Oh, we forgot to check the bottom here. Again, we can go in here, layout. So if you want that to just go below this, you can just do that quickly. That's fine. And we just need to make sure it's the same here on the mobile as well. Okay, so far so good. You really need to do that and make sure that pretty much everything looks the way you want, and that is very, very important. So what I also decided to do is to have two versions of my footer. So there are instances where I may want to use a lighter version or maybe perhaps a dark version. So let's go ahead and take a look at how I do this. So I'm going to go back over here to my theme builder, and then we're just going to go into our global footer and then just duplicate the whole thing. Okay. So with that now, I'm going to start working on the top one and make this the darker version. So I'm going to go in and go to the background. So let's make this super dark like that. And then all I have to do is to just change my text here and make it light. So for example, for that one, I'm going to go to heading, since that is a heading, and then go to my variable here, set this to light, do the same over here. We're going to go to our text, change that to light, and then we're going to do the same for the titles here as well. And go to the heading text. Now I've just noticed that the heading text hasn't been set with the right size. So I'm going to come over here and set this to heading 3. Now I just noticed that heading 3 is way too big. All right. So ideally we may want to set this to heading 5. So I'm going to come back, set this to heading 5. So now you can see that the size is much better if you compare it to the other ones. Okay, so with that, you just pretty much want to do all these in one go. I'm going to come over here as well. So for the text here, I'm going to do something different. I'm just going to highlight everything, and ideally I want to add, in fact, I need to set it up that way because it looks much better. And then over here on the design, you may need to go into your text and then the link. So the link is what you need because all these are all links. So let's customize that. So with our link selected, I'm going to make sure my size is set to body. Okay, now you can see it was slightly bigger. And then I'm going to also adjust my line height. So maybe 2 would work great for this. Now I need to change the color. So I need to find my color, and here it is. So let's go ahead and choose the color. So we can either go for that, but that's a bit too extreme for my liking. So I'm going to go back in and choose the light gray. Now, if you want, you can make a slight adjustment here because these are links. Now, here's a quick tip. You can also use this slider here. So now we're at -50 on the lightness. So that could work great as well if you want to use that instead. So now we're going to hit save. So the only thing I need to do now is to make sure that the rest here pretty much match what I've just designed here. All right, so now I've finished designing this and I'm pretty much happy with what it looks like. So the next thing I need to do is to disable one of them. So again, there's a feature in Divi where you can select the whole section here, go to advanced, and then you want to go to visibility and make sure you disable everything here and then hit save. So now when we go to our website, this should look different. So let's just go to our preview. Okay. And when you scroll all the way down, you can see our footer has changed. Now we have the dark mode. Okay. And our links here, if you want to link them to specific pages, you can do so by coming over here. Okay. So I think pretty much we've designed a clean website. And if you follow these principles as you're designing websites in the future, this is a very, very good foundation. So you can actually save this as a template or save parts of this website as a template so that you can reuse it over and over again. And this is the power that we have now with Divi. And I think, you know, this is a very, very good starting point. We have way more features to play around with here in order for us to create amazing looking websites. I am now going to further develop this into a membership website, a booking website, and so on. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I'd like to hear what you think in the comments box below. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one. Take care.